All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're jumping into a chapter from the Gospel of Matthew that on the surface seems pretty straightforward, a highlight reel of miracles. But as we're about to see, there might be a single powerful story hiding in plain sight.
Yeah, you open up Matthew chapter 9, and it really does look like just a list. 7 incredible healings, one right after the other.
But here's the thing. Our source for this deep dive, a commentary by Father Antonius Fekry, makes a pretty bold claim. He argues these aren't just random acts of power. No, he says they form a deliberate story, a story with a single, really revolutionary theme. So let's see how that argument actually plays out.
Okay, so where does this story start? Well, funny enough, it's not with a physical healing. It kicks off with a bold claim. A direct challenge to the biggest religious authorities around.
So a paralyzed man is brought to Jesus, and the first thing Jesus says is, "Take heart, son, your sins are forgiven." Now, did you catch that? His first words aren't about the paralysis at all. The commentary points out that Jesus goes straight for what he sees as the root cause of all suffering, sin. And by calling him son, he's also giving him back his identity, his place in the family.
Well, you can imagine, the religious leaders who are watching, they just lose it. In their minds, this is absolute blasphemy. For them, the power to forgive sins, that belonged to God and God alone.
So Jesus, and this is a key detail, knowing their thoughts, which in itself is a huge claim, he poses this killer question. Which is easier to say, your sins are forgiven, or to say, get up and walk? And the argument here is just brilliant. Look, saying your sins are forgiven is easy, right? It's invisible. Anyone could say that, and who could prove them wrong? But telling a paralyzed man to get up and walk, that requires immediate, undeniable proof that you have the authority you claim.
So that's the whole point, right? He does the visible physical miracle to prove he has the authority to do the invisible spiritual one. The healing is the receipt, it's the proof. And just like that, the first challenge to the old way of thinking is on the board.
Okay, so he's just established his spiritual authority. Now the story pivots. The next challenge isn't about religious law anymore. Now it's about deeply, deeply ingrained social rules.
So what does he do? He calls Matthew, a tax collector, to be one of his closest followers. And then he goes to his house and has dinner with a whole crowd of sinners. Now we have to really get this. Tax collectors weren't just unpopular. They were seen as complete traitors, working for the Roman occupiers. They were the lowest of the low, socially unclean. And Jesus doesn't just, tolerate them. He sits at their table. He eats with them. He celebrates with them.
And this moment right here, it sets up this massive conflict in worldviews. You have the old way, the way of the Pharisees, which saw holiness as separation. You stay pure by staying away from anyone considered unclean. But this new way Jesus brings, it's all about restoration. It's not about avoiding sick people. It's about being the doctor who goes right to them to make them whole again.
And then he drops this line that just completely reframes his entire mission. It is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. Boom. With that, he's basically saying, I'm not here to start some exclusive club for the perfect people. He's running a hospital for the broken. And that turns all the social and religious rules of the day completely upside down.
All right, so the challenge has gone from religious authority to social rules. Now it gets even deeper. It moves from action to philosophy, and it's all kicked off by a question about a core religious tradition, fasting.
So some of John the Baptist's disciples come to him, and these guys were known for being really disciplined, really serious, and they ask a totally fair question. Hey, why do we and the Pharisees fast all the time, but your guys don't?
And his answer must have been pretty shocking. He says, can the wedding guests mourn as long as the bridegroom is with them? Wow. He calls himself the bridegroom. He's basically signaling that his presence, right here, right now, is a special time. It's a time for joy and celebration, like a wedding, not for ritual mourning.
But he doesn't stop there. To really drive the point home, he uses 2 really powerful metaphors. The first one is about sewing a new, unshrunk piece of cloth onto an old coat. And the commentary really zeroes in on this. His new teaching can't just be slapped onto the old system. Its power, its life, is so different that it would literally tear the old fabric to shreds.
And the second metaphor? It's even more intense. It's about pouring powerful, fermenting new wine into old, brittle wineskins. You see, that vibrant, expanding life in his message would just burst the rigid, inflexible containers of the old religious traditions. They just can't hold it.
And this is where the commentary's core argument really comes into focus. This new way, this new teaching,
It isn't just a simple software update, it's a total replacement. It's saying you can't just adopt a few new habits, it demands a completely new heart, a new creation. That old mindset of rules and self-righteousness, it just cannot contain the new life of the gospel.
Okay, this brings us to the climax of the whole chapter. And here, Matthew weaves two stories together to show the ultimate scope of this new authority that Jesus has been claiming all along.
And check out how this plays out. It's like a race against time. First, a synagogue leader named Jairus comes and begs Jesus to heal his daughter, who's dying. But on the way, the mission gets interrupted. A woman who has been sick and bleeding for 12 years secretly touches his cloak, and bam, she's instantly healed. But right then, the worst possible news arrives. The little girl is dead. It feels like it's too late, but Jesus just turns to the father and says, "Don't be afraid, just believe." And he keeps going, walks into the house, and raises the girl from the dead.
Now, our source commentary points out something you could easily miss. A very significant number connects these two stories. The woman had been suffering for exactly 12 years, and the little girl, she was exactly 12 years old. The text makes sure we know that. That is not a coincidence.
So these two miracles, woven together like this, are meant to be understood as one complete statement. According to the source, this is the final piece of the argument about Jesus' power.
So together, these two miracles make one single, incredibly powerful point. Healing the woman shows his power over slow decay, over chronic suffering, and over what was considered ritual impurity. But raising Jairus' daughter, that shows his authority over something far more final, absolute, irreversible death. He has power over a life that's slowly draining away and over a life that has been completely snuffed out.
So when you step back and look at it this way, you see it, right? These 7 events are not just a random highlight reel of miracles. They are a declaration. They're a single, unfolding argument that a new kind of authority is on the scene, one that forgives sin, that includes the outcast, that transforms old, rigid traditions, and ultimately conquers death itself.
And that's really the central question that the commentary leaves us with. This isn't just some story from the past. I mean, if this power was meant to challenge every single religious, social, and physical boundary back then, what boundaries is it meant to challenge in our own lives, right here, right now?